Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. BYU basketball stealing a lot of headlines, but football season is right around the corner. And to get some football fix, we're bringing in a former BYU Cougar, former broadcasting guy as well, Riley Nelson. Riley, how's it going, man? How's the family?
Good. Everyone's good. You know, I get asked a lot about, do I wish I would have played in the NIL era?
I'm sure.
And I say, you know, I don't know if I'd be in I don't know if I would have been a big money guy. I don't want to make that much of a difference. But listen, to all the kids out there, there's a thing called compounding. And if I would have taken it and put it away, I wouldn't have to have been out for 4 hours this morning pulling weeds and doing yard work. I could have paid someone to do that off my NIL money. So I'm doing good.
What could your hair have collected in endorsement deals back then too, Riley?
I mean, you know, I look at Mahomes, and I don't know if I would have got all the way to the shoot, it's not Pert Plus. It's the anti-dandruff shampoo. Troy Polamalu, Patrick Mahomes.
Head and Shoulders?
Oh, Head and Shoulders, yeah. I don't know if I would have got a Head and Shoulders deal, but, you know, there's a lot of hair schools in Provo. Maybe I could have gotten something out of that.
Oh, man, that's good.
Riley Nelson's our guest here. And, Riley, 10 weeks from today, BYU football takes the field at LaVell Stadium against Southern Illinois. This offseason, it's kind of been no spotlight, just go to work and let their actions speak for themselves this fall. What do you think of how this offseason has gone thus far on the heels of a 5-7 campaign in year one of the Big 12?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I mean, it's funny. I have my nephews in town. They went to the BYU basketball camp, and so we were talking all about all the exciting news that's going there. I was talking with my brothers-in-law. I was like, I gotta be honest, guys. Like, I'm nervous. Like, we're already known for unrealistic high expectations, and with the way Kevin Young is landing all these recruits and the roster they're building for basketball, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm excited too, but I'm nervous because we've never been kind of in this end. Here's what I'll say. I look back to, all right, Kalani's first couple years, has to let go of Ty. You know, so in some ways, people felt like maybe there was some underperformance there. Obviously, with Taysom and Jamal's last year, but then you kind of knew that there was a reload. But it was just like super quiet. And they come out and they had that rebuilding year, and then we had those years, the magical years of 2020 and 2021, and of Zach Wilson and Jaron Hall and a bunch of good football. Leading into that, Zach Wilson wasn't hyped. We weren't all talking about how great the O-line was. No one was, like, putting Tyler Algier on preseason Doak Walker award watch lists. And so my point to that is I think BYU tends to do better in those workman-like situations or workman-like off-seasons. They're coming in to the season as a relative unknown. And so for those reasons, I'm excited about it.
How important is this period of time, this summer off-season, for a quarterback like Jake Retzlaff or Gary Bohannon, who are vying to be the starting quarterback this fall?
Incredibly important. And while they do have to put in the work to hone their craft, improve on their technique, get noticeably better from spring ball to fall camp, I'll be honest, when I got hurt in 2010 and coming in as the backup, it wasn't a competition externally. It wasn't a quarterback competition in 2011 to anyone but me. But I treated it as such, and one of my main goals going into the offseason was I have to be noticeably better from spring to fall. Not I have to close the gap on Jake, who was the starter at the time. You know, nothing that had to do with that, but rather I can't look – if I look the same – in week one in practices 1 through 5 as I did in practices 10 through 15, I'm going to be discredited in the coaching and the offensive staff side immediately. So what things can I do to be noticeably different? And that's what those guys have to do. So that's important. But then the second thing is, even though there's no kind of openly declared starter or things like that, they have to assume the fact that they, as if they are, and begin to develop rapport, relationships, wide receivers, offensive line being the two most important, and really, really foster that because that's the biggest second element. It's great if you can become a technician. It's great if you get your mechanics dialed in, but if you can't inspire the guys around you, if you can't lead the other 10 guys on the offense, and ultimately if you can't find a way to get first downs and put the ball in the end zone by any means necessary, not just by your arm or your throwing prowess, but through leading an offense, it's not going to matter how many, if you're going to Gurus or how often you're visiting John Beck in California or whatever. You have to have both of those elements.
Who would you declare as the starting quarterback for Week 1, 10 weeks from now?
I think it's Retzlaff. I just think, with Bohannon battling that shoulder thing, by most reports, and I mean, I don't have a lot of context of what he looked before other than I called that game when BYU went down to Waco and he was the starter. And, he didn't – a lot of things have changed. That's almost ancient history. But he didn't look like he was totally right. And then, just kind of looking in the feel and the command of the offense, felt like he wasn't really where a lot of people – and I think even he himself hoped he would be. So I think all of those things, even though it was small sample size with Jake, even though some may quantify it as underwhelming, I think he's a more known commodity for you. And from everything that I've heard, I don't know that, Bohannon's going to have to be markedly different simply because he's somewhat of an unknown quantity at BYU in this offense. And he's got to be able to do that or prove that. He's got a ton of ground to make ups to the point to where I'm not sure if it can be done in this timeline. So for that reason, I'm kind of saying Retzlaff.
You came to BYU after 1 year at Utah State. BYU's got a quarterback this year who spent 1 year at Utah State, McKay Hillstead. Do you know anything about Hillstead? And if so, your thoughts on that post-spring edition of adding another guy?
Yeah, I was at his first start up there. I was in Logan attending the game with my family and watched him throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, he also threw 3 picks. One of those was Utah State was in the red zone late in the fourth quarter. They were actually inside the 5, and he throws a pick on the goal line that, you won't say lost it for him because it's not, you can't reduce it all to any single play, but, it was a deciding play in that game. So, and then beyond that, he struggled to stay healthy, which, I look at McKay and I was considered a small quarterback and I played about 6 foot, 215 pounds. And, Jake's probably 5'10". And last year, I assume he's going to try and put on some weight, but last year he was about maybe 180, 185. In Division I college football, I mean, maybe that's what Ty played close to that back in the day. And he played against some big boys, but in Division I college football now, the forces and the mass and the speed and size of the players, you just can't do that. And I don't know that height's as big as an issue, but he's got to build his body out. He's got to build out his maturity. He's got to be able to – and look, that happens as a freshman because you're not used to the speed. You find yourself out of control a lot, so you learn to acclimate to the game to put yourself in more safe situations. But I'll tell you one thing, McKay can spin it, man. Like, the dude can spin the football. It's a big leap from G5 to P4. The competition, the defensive end, the defensive lines that he's going to face from week to week. Like, I spent 2 years in the Mountain West, and when we'd play those P5 opponents, I'm not kidding you. Like, it wasn't something that was conscious, but subconsciously you'd be in those pockets, and you'd be like, man, this just looks and feels different. And it's because at the G5 level, those D linemen, your DNs are maybe 6'2" or whatever. Your tackles, you got some tackles, that are a foot tall and a yard wide, and it's just a different field. And you get up into those P5, and I'll never forget, like, playing against Notre Dame. We're watching film, and I was like, and I remember we were watching it with the O-line. I go, oh, yeah, that's their starting tackle. And like, no, that's the rotation guy. I go, what? And I look, and he's 6'7", 320. Like, the dude that was 2 or third, he was like the third rotating in, and he's 6'7", 320. That's just what you get at that P4 level. So McKay's got a long way ahead. I think, maybe a potential insurance policy. Maybe he can really, really surprise someone. And, of course, if I'm him, I'm absolutely trying to get in the mix. But for me on the outside looking in, I think he's got some development to do and some growing within the program.
There you go. He's Riley Nelson. Riley, you hitting the cold plunge or anything after some long hours weeding in the front yard?
I wish, man. 4 kids, and the oldest is only 6. It's this, and then we're going to a birthday party, and then I promised them the pool and ice cream after that. So
nice.
No rest for the weary. But I know we got a lot of dads in the same situation listening out there, so least we can do is listen and share in some Cougar sports while we're at it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Riley. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Riley.
Have a good Saturday.
You bet, fellas. You too. Bye-bye.
All right, taking a break. News, traffic, and weather coming your way. And then Dave Rose is coming on the other side, getting back to hoops.